So we're in a very dangerous situation with what's going on in Ukraine. Yes, there's some peace talks with the Trump administration and within the Kremlin, and I've been hoping that war over there would stop. Russia and Ukraine culturally they're very close. There's a lot of families that have ties in both countries. People used to move back and forth between these two countries very often. The average person in Russia, the average person in Ukraine don't really hate each other. The problem is that you have this geopolitical competition between Russia and the West. And morally speaking, like the elitists, neither one really are the good people. You got tyranny on both sides, just different flavors of tyranny. Russia is sort of an old school tyranny. The West is a globalist, effeminate type of tyranny, which is evolving into something actually, frankly, worse than what's in Russia, even historically. So when you're saying that the West is pro-freedom, in the last decade, especially in the last few years, especially, that is absolutely not the case in practice. Okay, you look at what's going on in Starmer's Britain, where people essentially don't have free speech; they're getting arrested for "quote unquote" hate speech. You have political opponents in Germany most likely murdered. The Alternative for Deutschland, you had 6 or 7 people that died within a week in the western part of Germany. So, these people that say that the West, has a moral high ground, I seriously question that. Now, I think historically that is the case. Historically, the West was based on, the Enlightenment. It was based on individual liberty. At least that was the attempt. The United States certainly is, and to a lesser degree, Britain, with the Magna Carta and with property rights and rule of law. But it's escalating again. You have strikes that are going back and forth. You have Ukraine that made strikes and is targeting Russian shipping, and there's talks of targeting Russian ships, cargo ships, oil ships, and that actually, in a sense, is an act of war. This is another level of an embargo, an economic embargo, and it is a form of warfare. Okay, in any war, a country would target the other country's shipping. Okay, just to starve it out and to deprive it of income. So that's what the Ukrainians have done, and Putin made an announcement. This is an article by Pravda. Now, usually I don't link to Pravda. However, this is directly from the source. This is Putin speaking, and he's saying that he is ready to close the Black Sea to Ukraine. And so that's in a sense, an embargo of Ukraine as well. Now, they are at war, and that is something you would do in a war. And in this case, Russia is probably calculated as something that they have to do to protect their shipping and to prevent Ukraine from attacking them. But from the Ukrainian standpoint, this is also an escalation. So now we have potentially a warfare in the sea again since the beginning of the war. And, this is not good. It's dangerous. It could potentially escalate into a nuclear conflict. We don't want that. What is the end result? Well, Russia wants security. The West really needs to reform itself politically and go back to its Enlightenment roots. I think that's the best thing for Russia as well, because that would show Russia an example of what a free country really looks like, and that's something they can try to emulate. But that's the only way really forward. The Russian form of authoritarianism, that's hard to say. It may be on its ropes because of the internet and free speech. There's ways to get around censorship, but the whole world seems to be really slipping into tyranny and idiocracy. But anyway, I think the best way to promote freedom is to be an example of that and be a strong example of that. This nihilistic globalism that is trying to go to war with Russia is it's not an access of freedom. So I think the West needs to reform itself, and if it gets to its Enlightenment roots, then perhaps it may have a say in what it should do properly, geopolitically. But this is an escalation. I'll put a link in the description below. The warfare may very well carry over into the Black Sea again. It really already is. I mean, there's already drone strikes and attacks on Russian shipping. But yeah, there it is.